The U.S. soldiers moved carefully through the town. What had once been loud and chaotic was now silent. Doors were open. Weapons lay on the ground. White cloths hung from windows, signaling surrender. Most of the fighting was over. That's what they thought. At the edge of the street stood one last building. A small house, partly damaged, its windows dark. "Clear it," the squad leader ordered. Two soldiers approached the door. Inside, they saw him. One man. He was standing near the back wall, barely moving. His uniform was torn, his face pale and exhausted. In his hands was an old rifle, the kind that had already seen too much war. The Americans called out, "Drop the weapon!" No response. They repeated the order, louder this time. Slowly, the man looked up. He didn't aim the rifle. He didn't step forward. Instead, he shook his head. Just once. A calm refusal. One soldier tightened his grip on his own weapon. "This doesn't make sense," someone whispered. The man spoke quietly, in a language they didn't understand. His voice wasn't angry. It wasn't desperate. It was tired. The squad waited. Seconds stretched into long, uncomfortable silence. This was supposed to be simple, but the man wasn't fighting, and he wasn't surrendering. He was standing his ground in a way none of them had seen before, and in that moment, every American soldier there realized something. Whatever happened next would not follow the rules of war. The silence became unbearable. The U.S. soldiers stayed in position, weapons ready, but no one moved. The man inside the house still hadn't raised his rifle. He hadn't spoken again. The squad leader studied him carefully. This wasn't an ambush. This wasn't a trap. The man's shoulders were slumped. His boots were worn down to the sole. Mud and dust clung to him like he had been walking for days without rest. "Why won't he give up?" one soldier whispered. No one answered. An interpreter was called forward and spoke slowly, carefully, choosing each word. The man finally responded. His voice was quiet, almost empty. He said he had already survived the worst parts of the war. He had buried friends. He had walked back to find his home destroyed. There was nothing left behind him. Surrender, he explained, meant being taken somewhere he didn't choose. To wait, to exist, with no purpose at all. The interpreter finished speaking. No one rushed him. No one shouted. The squad leader removed his gloves. For a moment, it looked like he might give the order everyone expected. Instead, he said something no one was prepared to hear. "Lower your weapons." Several soldiers turned in shock. "That's not procedure," someone muttered. "I know," the leader replied. Then he took a slow step forward, unarmed. The man stared at him, confused. The rules of war were still there, but in that moment, the Americans chose something else, and the man felt it. The squad leader didn't rush. He stopped a few steps away and waited. The man's eyes moved from one American to another, searching for something he couldn't explain. No one shouted. No one pointed a weapon at him anymore. The silence felt different now. Slowly, the squad leader knelt and placed his helmet on the ground. Then he spoke, quietly, calmly. The interpreter repeated his words. "We're not here to take your last choice." The man's hands tightened around the rifle. For a moment, it looked like fear would win. Then exhaustion did. His shoulders dropped. The rifle slipped from his grip and rested against the floor. Not thrown, not surrendered, just released. One of the Americans instinctively stepped forward, then stopped himself. No one moved. The man sat down against the wall, breathing heavily, staring at nothing. The squad leader raised a hand. "Easy," he said. A canteen was offered, then a blanket. The man looked at them in disbelief. He hadn't expected kindness. He hadn't even hoped for it. And that was the moment everything changed. Not because a weapon was lowered, but because trust was. Time passed, but no one rushed to end the moment. The man remained seated against the wall, holding the canteen with both hands as if afraid it might disappear. He drank slowly, carefully. Outside, boots approached. Another U.S. unit had arrived. They stopped when they saw the scene. No weapons raised, no prisoner on his knees, no shouting, just silence. One of the newcomers whispered, "What's going on here?" The squad leader stepped forward and spoke quietly. "He's done fighting." "That's it?" the soldier asked. "That's enough," came the reply. The interpreter stayed close. Translating soft words meant more to calm than to question. The man finally spoke again. He asked where they were taking him. No one answered right away, because for the first time since the war began for him, the answer wasn't simple. Outside, higher command waited for a report. Inside, the soldiers waited for something else, a sign that they had done the right thing, and every man in that room understood. What had happened here would never be written down the way it truly occurred. The man was finally helped to his feet. Not pushed, not pulled, just guided. Outside, the air felt different, cooler, quieter. The street was empty now, as if the town itself was holding its breath. As they walked, other soldiers watched. Some expected anger, others expected relief. What they saw instead was something harder to describe. The man walked slowly, his head lowered, not in defeat, but in thought. He kept looking at the Americans beside him as if trying to understand them. A vehicle waited nearby. Standard procedure was clear, but no one rushed him toward it. The squad leader stopped and spoke again through the interpreter. "You won't be harmed." The man nodded, then hesitated. He reached into his jacket and pulled out the small photograph. A family. He held it up, not as a plea, but as an explanation. The soldiers understood. This story wasn't about surrender. It was about a moment that didn't fit into any rulebook. And somewhere nearby, an officer was already preparing a report that would never fully capture what had happened here. The report was short. One sentence stood out. "Enemy combatant secured without resistance." That was all. No mention of the silence. No mention of the hesitation. No mention of the moment when weapons were lowered on both sides. The man was taken away calmly. No chains. No shouting. Just a quiet ride to a place where the war would finally stop following him. Years later, one of the American soldiers would say something that never left the men who heard it. He didn't refuse to surrender because he wanted to fight. He refused because he had nothing left to give. What shocked everyone wasn't mercy. It was restraint. In a war built on force, the most powerful decision that day was choosing not to use it. And that moment, never written down properly, never photographed clearly, became the one they remembered most.